Welcome to Spotlight Sessions, where we shine a
What's
light
your
on
story?
incredible. What does accessibility mean to you?
What's your mission? Welcome all to a very special edition of accessiBe's Spotlight Sessions, where we shine a light on incredible individuals and organizations and the work that they do. I'm your host, Josh Basil. I'm a C4-5 quadriplegic, paralyzed below my shoulders, and a power wheelchair user. I'm the Community Relations Manager at accessiBe and a passionate disability rights advocate and trial attorney, focused on breaking down barriers to access and inclusion for people with disabilities. Today on accessiBe Spotlight Sessions, we're having our very first Valentine's special. We're joined by my dear friends, Cole Schneider and Charisma Jameson, on their super popular Roll with Cole and Charisma, a YouTube channel and so many other social media amazingness that they do. Welcome, Cole and Charisma.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
God, I'm so excited to have you on. You guys are awesome. You're taking over the internet. You're the storm. You guys are amazing. I love watching you, love following you. But for everybody else that might not know you, let's dive in. Cole, tell us a little bit about your paralysis journey.
Yeah. So right now I'm 27 years old. But when I was 16 years old, I dove into some shallow water. It was in the James River in Richmond, Virginia, and broke my neck at C4, C5, and C6. But I damaged my spinal cord at C5 and 6. So just a little bit lower than you, Josh, level-wise. But that means I don't have hand function. I don't have tricep function. But I have my biceps. I can push a power assist wheelchair. But I have nothing going on below my level of injury, really. And yeah, it's been a pretty wild 11 years, a lot of rehab in there, trying to gain as much independence back as possible. And, you know, in a lot of ways, I've gotten a lot of that independence back. It's just taken me a really, really long time to figure it all out. But, you know, every year, I feel like there's a little bit more I've found.
I love the sound of that. You put a lot of work in, and a lot comes out when you do that. And Charisma, share us about your journey, and then how did you cross paths with this man right next to you, Mr. Cole?
Yes. Well, I am 28, so a year older than Cole.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University, and I studied exercise science there. And my goal was to become an occupational therapist. But before going to occupational therapy school, I wanted to work as a rehab tech to get experience. And so I started working at Sheltering Arms, and that's where I met Cole. We chatted a little bit before really talking at a gala later that week, and Cole invited me over to a bonfire that originally didn't exist, but since I said yes, he had to find friends to come to the bonfire.
I had to have something exciting to invite her over for. I didn't want to just be like, hey, just come over. I was like, hey, and I got a bunch of friends coming over, but I didn't. So then I had to find them, and I did, and fortunately it worked out well.
Yes, and then
that was your first date?
Kind of.
Sort of.
That was our first hangout, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
At that hangout, I asked her on our first date, which was dinner and a movie. She mentioned a movie or something that she was curious to see.
Mm-hmm.
And so I jumped on that chance. I was like, hey, well, I'll go with you. I want to see that too.
Yeah.
Which I didn't. But
And he didn't like the movie.
No, it was terrible. It was not a good movie.
But the company was pretty good. The company was good.
Right.
Yes, that's what mattered the most.
That's all that mattered. And Charisma went home and was doing some interesting searching on Google that night.
I don't know if it was that night, but
That's what
it was
you said.
Shortly after, I was curious and I just looked up wheelchair weddings because I wanted to see like other people, you know, someone in a wheelchair marrying someone who wasn't in a wheelchair and what it looked like, because I was curious because I didn't see that representation anywhere.
Yeah, she moves fast.
Well, love does amazing things. And so, like, from the beginning, like, this question's kind of for both of you. What did you like most about each other? What was that good factor?
You go first.
Okay, I think for me, what I like most about Cole was his personality overall. So he's very positive, very charming, just made any situation fun. And he was just always so positive about everything. I could see that, you know, he may struggle doing a certain activity, but he always found a way to be positive about it. And I really loved that about him. Still do. He's still that way.
Thank you. Yeah. There are a couple things that struck me about Charisma. Physically, her smile. I mean, she just has that smile, you know, like it's so cliche to say lights up a room or whatever. I will use that cliche because that's how I feel when she smiles. But also our first date it was just so great because I could talk to her, and I had been on dates before where, you know, it was just question after question about my disability and like, you know, tell me about this part of your disability. How'd you get hurt? What does that mean? Can you do this? Can you do that? How do you do this? And that's not necessarily what I'm looking for on a date, you know? And I was so thrilled because Charisma just wanted to get to know me. And, you know, probably having a background in the hospital is part of that because she spends a lot of time with people with disabilities. So she has an idea of all those things. And she just wanted to get to know me. And that was like icing on the cake, you know? She's beautiful. She's fun. She's full of energy and charisma. And
pun intended.
Yeah. And she just wants to get to know me for who I am, which is like, that's all I could ask for out of the date. So it was just perfect.
All of the pieces of the puzzle. I love that. That's beautiful. And Charisma, for our viewers that don't know, what is an Interabled couple?
Yes. So Cole and I came across this term maybe a year into our relationship after starting the YouTube channel. And I saw the word Interabled and I was like, well, what does that mean? And I found that it meant, you know, one person in the relationship had a disability while the other person did not have a disability. And so whenever we posted videos, I started using that term because it was a way to describe us. Besides being interracial, we're also interabled. And it was a way for people to find, who are also in a very similar relationship, to find us and to see that there are couples like us everywhere. And so we use that word all the time. I love that there's a word that describes our relationship. And I think it's a great title and a great label. I think some people are against labels, but I think it's great because it's representation and it, you know, puts us out there.
And one thing I love about Interabled too is it's not necessarily like denoting who has more or less ability, you know? It's just different ability in our relationship, which is it's a great thing, I think.
I think every relationship, every partner has a different ability than their partner, so.
Yeah.
And then Cole, within this Interabled world, what's one myth that you can debunk? That's a lot of people, I know in the comment section, you probably get a million of the same questions. What's one myth you would just want to debunk right now?
Well, man, I would say the biggest assumption that we see is that the relationship is so hard on Charisma. It's always, oh, she's going to wear herself out. Oh, she must be exhausted. Oh, she's going to run herself dry. She's going to end up despising him over time for everything that she has to do. It's that's the biggest thing we see. And it's just frustrating because there are extra things that we do, but it's not like it's running us into the ground. Like we figured out a good system. It's very normal for us. And we know how to keep an eye on our mental and physical health so that if we are ever getting to that point, you know, we find respite in some way. We have help come in or whatever the case may be. We can figure that out. You know, the most challenging part of our relationship, I wouldn't necessarily say is the disability. It's the other things that come with the relationship, like learning how to communicate with each other, learning how to operate day to day, learning how to share responsibilities and support each other, like typical relationship things that have nothing to do with the disability. So that's the biggest assumption. It's just that all of the issues stem from the disability, you know, or challenges, I mean.
That's such good points. And it's being in a relationship takes a lot of work. And if you don't put the energy, time, and love into it, it can be hard no matter what. But you know, when you put the time and love into it, it's a beautiful thing. And I love what you guys have. So Cole, what is one thing that people that don't know about what's like dating with somebody with a disability?
I think something that people don't really understand is that having an interabled relationship allows for bonding in a lot of moments that able-bodied relationships wouldn't have. In the sense that, like, you know, a lot of things go wrong And when they do go wrong, together we have to collectively figure that out. Mm-hmm. And, you know, having to use that teamwork and having to figure out conflict together and go through this situation together oftentimes brings us closer and strengthens our relationship. And so I think that's a really, really cool aspect of our relationship that lends depth to, you know, how we see each other and how we view each other and our love for each other. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that if people saw that, if people realized that, they would look at our relationship a little bit differently.
I love that. And then, Cole, I'm going to do another follow-up with you. When it comes to, you know, on social media and your postings and things of that nature, why is it so important that there's inclusive language, that there's access and accessibility for people to be able to see this information? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, more and more our world is on the internet, on social media, and we, as in the disabled community, are legion. You know, there are a ton of us out there, and so as consumers, we're using social media. We're trying to engage with people's content. We're trying to consume products, entertainment, all of these things. And it's so important to include our community. One, because it's just the right thing to do, you know. And two, it makes sense for the people producing this content and producing these products because you want as many people to be able to access it as possible. That just makes sense business-wise. So it's important for just the principle of it, but also it just makes sense all around. And I think we're starting to see a lot more accessibility online, a lot more corporations, companies, brands, content creators taking it more seriously. And it makes a difference. You know, we see so many comments and emails and messages from people who are just so appreciative that we put image descriptions on our Instagram photos and video descriptions on our videos on Instagram and TikTok and stuff. Even on YouTube, we always have captions. We always make sure that they're right and they're not the automated crappy captions that just get generated by YouTube. And that's important. We have our visually impaired community, we have our hard of hearing community who reaches out and says they're so appreciative of that because they get to engage with our content. They love it. And that is just the right thing to do, you know, at the end of the day.
It just shows that you get it. And that's just, I know it means a lot so that people have access and they can be a part of your journey. Both of your journeys it's an incredible one. And it changes the way, it changes representation. And Charisma, like when it comes to representation of interabled couples on the internet, on social media and advertising in the entertainment industry, do you think there's enough and what can be done differently?
I definitely do not think there's enough. I think we have a long ways to go when it comes to representation. Cole and I will watch a show or a commercial and we'll see an interracial couple very, very very quickly. You know, that's very common. A same-sex couple, that's very common, but it's rare that you see an interabled couple. You know, I feel like I can only think of one or maybe a handful. You know, There's a show where the dad's deaf. So in that situation, or there's a music video where the guy's in a wheelchair, but there isn't enough representation. And there's a long way for us to go. And I think it starts with media, with TV shows, with movies. You know, these writers need to start writing roles for disabled people, finding disabled actors because they're out there. Mm-hmm. One being here, Cole. Yeah. And so they're people who want to, you know, act and who are disabled, who want to be represented. But it starts with Hollywood when it comes to that. And I don't know where Hollywood is. I think we have a long ways to go, honestly.
Yeah, I think we're moving in the right direction. The big shift is going to come once Hollywood realizes you can cast disabled people for whatever role. It doesn't have to be all about their disability. Mm-hmm. Right now, we're starting to see more disabled roles being written, but they're still just about the disability. Yeah. Instead of, like she said, that one show where it's just the dad just happens to be deaf and use sign language, you know? And that's it's not all about him being deaf. It's just, that's just who he is.
Who he is, yeah.
So once we start seeing more of that, I think we're gonna really feel the shift happening.
Yeah, I think people are just nervous about the effort, the accessibility, the accommodations, and they're so intimidated by it instead of just going for it and seeing that it's not difficult and things should be accessible. Why not make your production shoot accessible, your trailers accessible? It should already be accessible for everyone.
Yeah.
I cannot agree with both of you more. I love how you put it, and it's just so true. Like even in so many of the Hollywood positions there for casting, like there's so many stories that actually end up having a quadriplegic in it, or somebody with a disability, and then they hire somebody without a disability to do it just because they're like, the only way we can do this movie is if we get people in the box office. Yeah. Like it's not always going to be the truth in the case, and the power of it, the truth behind it. It's there's so much that we can do better. And and I know we talked earlier about your first date, but when it comes down to your best date or your best adventure that you've ever been on together, I'd love to get some stories behind that.
Oh man, well, we've had quite the adventures.
Yeah,
we go on 5 years.
We go on a lot of adventures. I feel like almost everything is like my favorite. I can name so many different adventures because they're all great.
Yeah.
But I feel like collectively, like we both we got married in 2020 and we didn't take a honeymoon for a while, and we finally went on our honeymoon to Mexico, and that was just a very, very special moment for us. We had to celebrate our marriage, and we went to a different country for the first time.
Yeah,
and it was amazing. And one night they put together this special date night on the beach for us, where they had, a chef coming, bringing us meals, and it was just the two of us on the beach with this huge love sign, and it was amazing. And they actually put down tables so that Cole could easily access the table because it was all on sand.
Yeah.
And so they went, above and beyond to make sure it was accessible, because Mexico is not the best with accessibility. They don't have the ADA. And so they try their best, but it's not always great. But it was amazing to see them put in the effort to really make sure our date was special. And it was.
Yeah. So a romantic dinner on the beach.
Yeah.
Another great adventure though, not really a date, but just an awesome time, was when we went to Walt Disney World with a couple of our friends, Garrett and Blake, who are very strong. And they were able to pick me up and put me on every ride. This was the first time I had ridden roller coasters since my injury. It's like a full decade or something. And to get to share that experience with Charisma, I mean, we have awesome pictures of just going crazy. She's holding my hand like this. We're like, ah! It was so much fun. That was a great adventure too. But man, yeah, we've just done a lot of stuff. Scrolling through our YouTube channel over the past 4 years, or however long it's been, it's pretty wild to see all the adventures.
Done a lot.
Yeah.
And what are you both looking forward to most in the next chapter in life?
Our next chapter in life, we're looking forward to being parents. So that's where we're headed. We're trying to make that happen. And so we're looking forward to that journey and to have a little charisma, is what we like to say.
A little charisma running around.
Yeah. So we're really, really looking forward to that. I feel like we've done so much and we travel so much that we're both ready to just slow down. And I know it's not going to slow down that much with the baby, but it'll be a different kind of slow down.
Settle down to keep running fast.
Yeah.
That's all. Well, I cannot wait for that either. And they're going to be the cutest little kiddos ever. And I'm so excited for our kids to one day be able to play together. That would be a dream come true. For everybody, I would love for you, if you can, share some of your social media handles where people can follow you and all of that good stuff.
Yes. So on YouTube, you can just search Roll with Cole and Charisma. It will pop up. You can honestly just Google Cole and Charisma and most of our socials will pop up.
Don't flex too hard.
On Instagram, Cole is roll.with.cole. I am happily Charisma. And then on TikTok, we're both Cole and Charisma.
Thank you so much.
Facebook.
Oh, yeah, there's Facebook.
Roll with Cole and Charisma videos on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I just cannot thank both of you enough for being on today's accessiBe's Spotlight Sessions Valentine's Day special. This is a first, and you guys knocked it out of the park. You are wonderful. Your journey is wonderful. And just I'm so grateful to be able to call you guys friends. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Really appreciate it.
And for all of our viewers, thank you so much for staying to the end. Please hit that subscribe button and follow us at the @ accessiBe_community. Thank you so much for being here. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.